Evolution. Evolutionary biology is the study of history of life forms on Earth. What exactly is evolution? To understand changes in flora and fauna that have occurred over millions of years on Earth, we must have an understanding of the context of origin of life, that is evolution on Earth, of star and indeed of the universe itself. What follows is the longest of all the construed and conjectural stories. This is the story of origin of life and evolution of life form or biodiversity on planet Earth in the context of evolution of the Earth and against the background of the evolution of the universe itself. Origin of life. When we look at stars on a clear night sky, we are in a way looking back in time. Stellar distance are measured in light years. That what we see today is an object whose immediate light started its journey millions of years back and from trillions of kilometers away and reaching our eyes now. However, when we see objects in our immediate surrounding, we see them instantly and hence in the present time. Therefore, when we see stars, we apparently are peeping into the past. The origin of life is considered a unique event in the history of the universe. The universe is vast, relatively speaking. The earth itself is almost only a speck. The universe is very old, almost 20 billion years old. Huge cluster of galaxies comprises of the universe. Galaxies contain star and cloud of the gas and dust. Considering the size of universe, Earth is indeed a speck. The Big Bang theory attempts to explain to us the origin of universe. It talks of a singular huge explosion unimaginable in physical terms. The universe expanded and hence the temperature came down. Hydrogen and helium formed sometimes later. The gases condensed under gravitation and formed the galaxies of the present-day universe. In the solar system of the Milky Way galaxy, Earth was supposed to have been formed about 4.5 billion years back. There was no atmosphere on Earth, early Earth. Water, vapor, methane, carbon dioxide and ammonia released from molten mass covered the surface. The UV rays from the sun broke up water into hydrogen and oxygen and the lighter hydrogen escaped. Oxygen combined with ammonia and methane to form water, carbon dioxide and others. The ozone layer was formed as it cooled. The water vapor fell as rain to fill all the depression and formed ocean. Life appeared 500 million years after the formation of Earth, that is almost 4 billion years back. Did life come from outer space? Some scientists believe that it came from outside. Early Greek thinkers thought unit of life called spores were transferred to different planets including Earth. Panspermia is still a favorite idea for some astronomers. For a long time, it was also believed that life came out of decaying and rotting matter like straw, mud, etc. This was the theory of spontaneous generation. Louis Pasteur, by careful experimentation, demonstrated that life comes only from pre-existing life. He showed that in pre-sterilized flies, life did not come from killed yeast, while in another flask open to air, new living organism arose from the killed yeast. Spontaneous generation theory was dismissed once and for all. However, this did not answer how the first life form came on Earth. Oparin of Russia and Helen of England proposed that the first form of life could have come from the pre-existing non-living organic molecules, example RNA, protein, etc., and that formation of life was preceded by chemical evolution, that is formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituent. The condition on Earth were high temperature, volcanic storm, reducing atmosphere containing methane, ammonia, etc. In 1953, S.L. Miller, an American scientist, created similar conditions in a laboratory scale. He created electric discharge in a closed flask containing methane, hydrogen, ammonia and water vapor at 800 degrees centigrade. He observed formation of ammonia acid. In similar experiment, others observed formation of sugar, nitrogen-based pigment and fats. Analysis of meteorite content also revealed similar compounds, indicating that similar processes are occurring elsewhere in space. With this limited evidence, the first part of the conjecture story, that is, chemical evolution, was more or less accepted. We have no idea about how the first self-replicating metabolic capsule of life arose. The first non-cellular form of life could have originated 3 billion years back. They could have been giant molecule RNA protein. Polysaccharide, etc. These capsules reproduce their molecules. Perhaps the first cellular form of life did not possibly originate till about 2000 million years ago. These were probably single cell. All life forms were in water environment only. This version of biogenesis, that is the first form of life, arose slowly through evolutionary forces from non-living molecules, is accepted by majority. However, once formed, how the first cellular form of life could have evolved into the complex biodiversity of today is the fascinating story that will be discussed below. Evolution of life form a theory. Conventional religious literature tells us about the theory of spatial creation. This theory has three connotations. One, that all living organisms, species or types that we see today were created as such. Two, that the diversity was always the same since creation and will be the same in future also. Three, that Earth is about 4,000 years old. All these ideas were strongly challenged during the 19th century, based on the observations made during a sea voyage in a shell ship called HMS Beagle around the world. Charles Darwin concluded that existing living forms share similarities to varying degrees not only among themselves but also with life forms that existed millions of years ago. Many such life forms do not exist anymore. There had been extinction of different life forms in the years gone by, just as new forms of life arose at different periods of history of Earth. There has been gradual evolution of life forms. Any population has built-in variation in characteristics. Those characteristics will enable some to survive better in natural conditions, climate, food, physical factors, etc. Would outbreed others that are less endowed to survive under such natural conditions. Another word used is fitness of the individual or population. Fitness, according to Darwin, refers ultimately and only to reproductive fitness. Hence, those who are better fit in than an environment have more progeny than others. These therefore will survive more and hence are selected by nature. We called it natural selection and implied it as a mechanism of evolution. Let us also remember that Alfred Wallace, the naturalist who worked in Malay archipelago, had also come to similar conclusion around the same time. In due course of time, apparently new type of organism are recognizable. All the existing life forms share similarity and share common ancestor. However, these ancestors were present at different period in the history of Earth, epoch, period, and eras. The geological history of Earth closely correlated with the biological history of Earth. A common permissible conclusion is that Earth is very old, not thousands of years as was thought earlier, but billions of years old. What are the evidence for evolution? Evidence that evolution of life forms has indeed taken place on Earth has come from many quarters. Fossils are remains of hard part of life forms found in rock. Rocks form sediment and a cross-section of Earth's crust indicate the arrangement of sediments on over the other during the long history of Earth. Different age rock sediment contain fossils of different life forms who probably died during the formation of the particular sediment. Some of them appear similar to modern organisms. They present extinct organisms, that is, dinosaurs. A study of fossils in different sedimentary layers indicates the geological period in which they exist. The study showed that life forms varied over time and certain life forms are restricted to certain geological time span. Hence, new forms of life have arisen at different times in history of Earth. All this is called paleontological evidence. Do you remember how the age of the fossil are calculated? Do you recollect the method of radioactive dating and the principle behind the procedure? Embryological support for evolution was also proposed by Ernst Haeckel based upon the observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adults. For example, the embryos of all vertebrates including human develop a row of vestigial gill slit just behind the head, but it is a functional organ only in fish and not found in any other adult vertebrates. However, this proposal was disapproved on careful study performed by Carl Ernst Weinberg. He noted that embryos never pass through the adult stage of other animals. Comparative anatomy and morphology show similarities and different among the organisms of today and those that existed years ago. Such similarity can be interpreted to understand whether common ancestors were shared or not. For example, whale, bats, cheetahs, and humans, all mammals share similarities in pattern of bone of forelimbs. Though these forelimbs perform different functions in these animals, they have similar anatomical structure. All of them have humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges in their forelimbs. Hence, in these animals, the same structure developed along different directions due to adaptation of different needs. This is divergent evolution and these structures are homologous. Homology indicates common ancestry. Other examples are vertebrates, hearts or brains. In plant also, the thorn and tendrils of Helia and Cucurbita represent homology. Homology is based on divergent evolution, whereas analogy refers to a situation exactly opposite. Wings of butterfly and of bird look alike. They are not anatomically similar structure, though they perform similar function. Hence, analogous structure are a result of convergent evolution. Different structure evolving for the same function and hence having similarity. Other examples of the analogy are the eye of the octopus and of mammals or the flippers of penguins and dolphins. One can say that it is the similar habitat that has resulted in selection of similar adaptative features in different groups of organisms but towards the same function. Sweet potato root modification and potato stem modification is another example of analogy. In the same line of argument, similarities in proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clue to common ancestry. These biochemical similarities point to the same shared ancestry as structural similarities among diverse organisms. Man has bred selected plants and animals for agriculture, horticulture, sport or security. Man has domesticated many wild animals and crops. This intensive breeding program has created breeds that differ from other breeds but still are of the same group. It is argued that if within hundreds of years man could create new breeds, could not nature have done the same over millions of years? Another interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selection comes from England. In a collection of moths made in 1850s, that is before industrialization setting, it was observed that there are more white-winged moths on trees than dark-winged or melanized moth. However, in the collection carried out from the same area, but after industrialization, that is in 1920, there were more dark-winged moths in the same area. That is, the proportion was reversed. The explanation put forth for this observation was that the visitors will spot a moth against a contrasting background. During post-industrialization period, the tree trunks became dark due to the industrial smoke and soot. Under this condition, the white-winged moth did not survive due to predators. Dark-winged or melanized moths survived before industrialization set in. Thick growth of almost white-colored lichen covered the tree. In the background, the white-winged moth survived, but the dark-colored moths were picked out by the predators. Do you know that lichen can be used as industrial pollution indicator? They will not grow in areas that are polluted, hence moths that were able to camouflage themselves, that is hide in the background, survive. This understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where industrialization did not occur, example in rural areas, the count of melanic moth was low. This showed that in a mixed population, those that can better adapt, survive and increase in population size. Remember that no variant is completely wiped out. Similarly, excess use of herbicides, pesticides, etc. had only resulted in selection of resistant varieties in a much lesser time scale. This is also true for microbes against which we employ antibiotics or drug against eukaryotic organism or cell. Hence, resistant organism or cell are appearing in a time scale of month or years and not centuries. These are examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. These also tell us that evolution is not a direct process in the sense of determinism. It is a stochastic process based on chance event in nature and chance mutation in the organism. What is the adaptative radiation? During the journey of Darwin went to Galapagos Island. There he observed an amazing diversity of creatures of particular interest. Small black birds, later called Darwin's finches, amazed him. He realized that there were many varieties of finches in the same island. All the varieties, he conjectured, evolved on the island itself from the original seed-eating features. Many other formed with altered big arrows, enabling them to become insectivorous and vegetarian finches. This process of evolution of different species in a given geographical area, starting from a point and literally radiating to other area of geography habitat, is called the adaptative radiation. Darwin's finches represent one of the best examples of this phenomenon. Another example is Australian marsupials. A number of marsupials, each different from the other, evolved from an ancestral stock, but all within the Australian island continent. When more than one adaptive radiation appeared to have occurred in an isolated geographical area representing different habitat, one can call this convergent evolution. Placental mammals in Australia also exhibit adaptive radiation in evolving onto a variety of such placental mammals, each of which appear to be similar to a corresponding marsupial, the placental wolf and Tasmanian wolf marsupial. Biological evolution. Evolution by natural selection in a true sense would have started when cellular forms of life with difference in metabolic capability originated on Earth. The essence of Darwin theory about evolution is natural selection. The rate of appearance of new forms is linked to the life cycle or the lifespan. Microbes that divide first have the ability to multiply and become millions of individuals within hours. A colony of bacteria, say, growing on a given medium has built-in variation in terms of ability to utilize the feed component. A change in the medium composition would bring out only that part of the population, say B, that can survive under the new condition. In due course of the time, these variant population outgrow on the other and they appear as a new species. This would happen within days. For same thing to happen in a fish or fowl would take millions of years, as lifespan of the animals are in years. Here we say that fitness of B is better than that of A under the new conditions. Nature selects for fitness. One must remember that the so-called fitness is based on characteristics which are inherited. Hence, there must be a genetic basis for getting selected and to evolve. Another way of saying the same thing is that some organisms are better adapted to survive in an otherwise hostile environment. Adaptive ability is inherited. It has a genetic basis. Fitness is the end result of the ability to adapt and get selected by nature. Branching descent and natural selection are the two key concepts of Darwin theory of evolution. Even before Darwin, a French naturalist Lamarck had said that evolution of life form had occurred but driven by use and disuse of organs. He gave the example of giraffe who in an attempt to forage live on tall trees had to adapt by elongation of their neck as they passed on this acquired character of elongation neck to succeeding generations. Giraffe slowly over the years came to acquire long neck. Nobody believed this conjecture anymore. Is evolution a process or the result of a process? The world we see, inanimated and animated, is only the success story of evolution. When we describe the story of this world, we describe the evolution as a process. On the other hand, when we describe the story of life on earth, we treat evolution as a consequence of a process called natural selection. We are still not very clear whether to regard evolution and natural selection as process or the end result of unknown process. It is possible that the work of Thomas Malthus on population influenced Darwin. Natural selection is based on the certain observations which are factual. For example, natural resources are limited, population are stable in size except for seasonal fluctuation. Members of a population vary in characteristics. In fact, no two individuals are alike, even though they look superficially similar. Most of the variation are inherited, etc. The fact that theoretically population size will grow exponentially if everybody reproduces maximally, this fact can be seen in a growing bacterial population, and the fact that population size in reality are limited means that there had been competition for resources. Only some survived and grew at the cost of the other that could not flourish. The novelty and brilliant insight of Darwin was this. He asserted that variation which are inheritable and which make resource utilization better for few adapted to habitat better will enable only those to reproduce and leave more progeny. Hence, for a period of time, over many generations, survivors will leave more progeny and there would be a change in population characteristics and hence new forms appear to arise. Mechanism of evolution. What is the origin of this variation and how does speciation occur? Even though Mendel had talked of inheritable factors influencing the phenotype, Darwin either ignored this observation or kept silent. In the first decade of 20th century, Hugo de Vries, based on this work on evening from here, Primrose brought forth the idea of mutation, large difference arising suddenly in a population. He believed that it is mutation which cause evolution and not the minor variation heritable that Darwin talked about. Mutation are random and directionless, while Darwin's variation are small and directional. Evolution for Darwin was gradual, while de Vries believed mutation caused speciation and hence called it saltation, single step large mutation. Studies in population genetics later brought out some clarity. Hardy-Weinberg principle. In a given population, one can find out the frequency of occurrence of alleles of a gene or a locus. This frequency is supposed to remain fixed and even remain the same through generation. Hardy-Weinberg principle stated it using algebraic equation. This principle says that allele frequencies in a population are stable and is constant from generation to generation. The gene pool, total genes and their alleles in a population remains a constant. This is called genetic equilibrium. Sum total of all the allelic frequencies is 1. Individual frequencies, for example, can be named P, Q, etc. In a diploid, P and Q represent the frequency of allele A and allele A. The frequency of capital A capital individual in a population is simply P square. This is simply stated in another ways, that is probability that an allele capital A with a frequency of P appears on both the chromosome of a diploid individual is simply the product of the probability, that is P square. Similarly of small a square is Q square, of capital A small a 2pq, hence P square plus 2pq plus Q square equal to 1. This is a binomial expansion of P plus Q whole square, where frequency measured differ from expected values. The difference direction indicate the extent of evolutionary change, disturbance in genetic equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, that is, change of frequency of alleles in a population would then be interpreted as resulting in evolution. 5 factors are known to affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. These are gene migration or gene flow, genetic drift, mutation, genetic recombination and natural selection. When migration of a section of population to another place and population occurs, gene frequencies changes in the original as well as in the new population. New genes or alleles are added to the new population and these are lost from the old population. There would be a gene flow if this gene migration happens multiple times. If the same changes occur by chance, it is called the genetic drift. Sometimes the change in allele frequency is so different in the new sample of population that they become a different species. The original drifted population become founder and the effect is called founder effect. Microbial experiments show that pre-existing advantageous mutation when selected will result in observation of new phenotype. Over few generations, this would result in speciation. Natural selection is a process in which heritable variation enabling better survival are enabled to reproduce and leave greater number of progeny. A critical analysis makes us believe that variation due to mutation or variation due to recombination during gametogenesis or due to gene flow or genetic drift result in changed frequency of genes and alleles in future generations. Coupled to enhance reproductive success, natural selection make it look like different population. Natural selection can lead to stabilization in which more individuals acquire mean character value. Directional changes, more individuals acquire value other than the mean character value, or disruption, more individuals acquire peripheral character value at both ends of the disruption curve. A brief account of evolution. About 2000 million years ago, MIA, the first cellular forms of life appeared on Earth. The mechanism of how non-cellular aggregated of giant micromolecules would evolve into cell with membranous envelope is not known. Some of these cells had the ability to release oxygen. The reaction could have been similar to the light reaction in photosynthesis where water is split with the help of solar energy captured and channelized by appropriate light harvesting pigment. Slowly single-celled organism became multicellular life form. By the time of 500 MIA, invertebrates were formed and active. Jawless fish probably evolved around 350 MIA. Seaweed and few plants existed probably around 320 MIA. We are told that the first organisms that invaded land were plants. They were widespread on the land when animals invaded land. Fish with stout and strong fins could move on land and go back to water. This was about 350 MIA. In 1938, a fish caught in South Africa happened to be a coelacanth, which was tough to extinct. This animal called lobe fins evolved into the first amphibian that lived on both land and water. There was no, there are no specimens of these left with us. However, these were ancestors of modern day frog and salamanders. The amphibians evolved into reptiles. They lay thick shelled eggs which do not dry up in sun unlike those of amphibians. Again, we only see their modern day descendants, the turtle, tortoise and crocodile. In the next 200 million years or so, reptiles of different shapes and size dominated on Earth. Giant ferns, pteridophytes are present, but they fail to form coal deposited slowly. Some of these land reptiles went back into water to evolve into fish-like reptiles probably 200 MIA. The land reptiles were, of course, the dinosaurs, the biggest of them, that is Tyrannosaurus Rex was about 20 feet in height and had huge, fearsome dagger-like teeth. About 65 MIA, the dinosaurs suddenly disappeared from Earth. We do not know the true reason. Some say climatic change killed them. Some say most of them evolved into birds. The truth may lie in between. Small-sized reptiles of that era still exist today. The first mammals were like seals. Their fossils are small-sized. Mammals were viviparous and protected their unborn young inside the mother's body. Mammals were more intelligent in sensing and avoiding danger at least. When reptiles came down, mammals took over this earth. There were in South America mammals resembling horse, hippopotamus, bear, rabbits, etc. Due to continental drift, when South America joined North America, these animals were overridden by North American fauna. Due to same continental drift, pouch mammals of Australia survived because of lack of competition from any other mammals. Lest we forget, some mammals live wholly in water. Whale, dolphin, seal and sea cow are some examples. Evolution of horse, elephant, dog, etc. are special stories of evolution. You will learn about these in higher classes. The most successful story of the evolution of man with language, skill and self-consciousness. A rough sketch of the evolution of life form. Their time of geological scale and are indicated in figure. Origin and evolution of man. About 15 MOA primates called Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus were existing. They were hairy and walked like gorillas and chimpanzees. Ramapithecus was more man-like while Dryopithecus was more ape-like. Few fossils of man-like bone have been discovered in Ethiopia and Tanzania. These revealed hominid feature leading to the belief that about 3 to 4 MOA man-like primates walked in eastern Africa. They were probably not taller than 4 feet but walked upright. 2 MOA Australopithecines probably lived in East African grasslands. Evidence shows they hunted with stone weapons but essentially 8 foot. Some of the bones among the bones discovered were different. This creature was called the first human-like being, the hominid, and was called Homo habilis. The brain capacity was between 650 to 800 cc. They probably did not eat meat. Fossil discovered in Java in 1891 revealed the next stage, that is Homo erectus about 1.5 MOA. Homo erectus had a large brain around 900 cc. Homo erectus probably ate meat. The Neanderthal man with a brain size of 1400 cc lived in Near East and Central Asia between 1 lakh to 40,000 years back. They used hide to protect their body and buried their dead. Homo sapiens arose in Africa and moved across continent and developed into distinct races. During Ice Age between 75,000 to 10,000 years ago, the modern Homo sapiens arose. Prehistoric cave art developed about 18,000 years ago. One such cave painting by prehistoric human can be seen in Bhimbetka rock shelter in Raisen district of Madhya Pradesh. Agriculture came around 10,000 years back and human settlement started. The rest of what happened is part of human history of growth and decline to civilization.